The wild boar population in California is rapidly expanding and is becoming unmanageable. In addition to destroying the land and destroying crops, they also pose a hazard to farmers. The area that has been left in ruins continues to grow. At this very moment, hunters are obligated to take action in order to bring the lives of the farmers in this area back into balance. What will be the beginning of this hump? Is there any potential risk that the hunters could face? Hunting wild boars is not an easy task. They have the ability to run at speeds of up to 40 miles per hour, are obstinate, intelligent, and exceedingly vigilant. Not only do they not run away when they are cornered, but they can even turn around and attack. In the world of hunting, even a single instant of uncertainty might result in the loss of their own blood. The quick burst of movement that came from the bushes was followed by a full herd of wild boars charging out and dashing directly across my path. This occurred after we had separated ourselves in order to look for any indications of the prey. Immediately, I raised my weapon, took a fast aim, and pulled the trigger without giving it any thought. Instantaneously, one of the boars in the herd fell to the ground. On the other hand, the others made a hasty exit, fled the situation at full speed. I relocated to a different location, and as I was searching for indications of the prey, I suddenly became aware of a rustling sound in the vicinity. Instantaneously, I raised my weapon and took precise aim at the target. At a different area, I was able to hear the intense barking of the hunting dogs. As I was taking in my surroundings, I became aware of a shadowy figure that was moving through the bushes not too far away from me. Putting my gun up, I waited for the appropriate opportunity to strike. It was getting closer and closer. The trigger was pulled by me. The initial target was not hit. In fact, it got even closer. A second shot was successful. It was only a few meters away from me when the boar fell to the ground and collapsed. If I hadn't managed to maintain my composure at that precise moment, I might have been forced to pay a significant price. The proximity was very near. During my time spent waiting in place, I noticed a massive boar attempting to flee by weaving between the trees. "Howdy!" A shot was fired, and the bullet hit the wild boar. The gunshot boomed loudly. Jake had already arrived at the trail exit, where he was waiting in another location. While he was standing there with his rifle in his hand, he was simply waiting for the prey to emerge. Suddenly, a wild boar came roaring forward, but as soon as it saw him, it changed its course and fled. Jake instantly fired the trigger, ensuring that it would not have any opportunity to flee. In order to check, he walked over, and then he motioned to the others. "It's 6. There was a descent into night. My proximity to the hunting dogs increased as I became aware of their loud barking. I was startled as a wild boar suddenly emerged from the grass and charged directly toward me. I retreated while simultaneously lifting my weapon and pressing the trigger at the precise moment when it was fired. As soon as the gunshot reverberated, it was followed by its roar, and then it fell to the ground. There is a possibility that I would not be here to tell the story if I had been even 1 second slower. When they travel, they bring disease with them and cause chaos wherever they go. They are intruders. Not only do wild boars inflict irreparable harm to crops and the environment, but they are also carriers of dozens of diseases that are extremely harmful to humans. In the event that nothing is done to stop them, their numbers will continue to spiral out of control, which will result in disastrous outcomes. Today, we set out with the intention of achieving a single objective, which is to locate and eradicate these terrible pests. Be sure to keep an eye on every exciting moment and every difficult conflict, and observe how we manage to defeat them. Our canines were able to locate a wild boar in a short amount of time because to their keen senses of smell and remarkable hunting instincts. A shadowy figure sprinted across the unending white landscape, advancing like a storm as it traversed the landscape. Nevertheless, I fired the trigger just in time to prevent it from vanishing into the thick foliage. One shot was fired into the air. We made our ascent even higher. Moreover, it was the best choice possible. Both of our hunting dogs had their sights set on a target, and they were pursuing it with incredible speed. During the course of the pursuit, we encountered the boar in the open area where we had identified it. The sound of a gunshot reverberated throughout the valley, but the boar continued to flee, continued to run despite its lack of consistency. We opened fire on it. A second attempt is being made. It was a disastrous situation when the beast went and seized it. It was instinctive for them to look for a safe haven, and the only secure place that remained was death. If we did not take action right now, they would come back in a matter of minutes, causing significantly more damage than they already had. The skilled members of our hunting team soon came up with a strategy. In order to ensure that every possible escape route was secured, we divided into smaller groups. The viewpoint was selected to be the tallest mountain in the area. Our approach was made more difficult by the bare trees and the rough terrain. But then, a silhouette appeared in front of us. It was our objective. Although it made an attempt to flee, our trained hunting dog was able to stop it in its tracks. The beast, which was surrounded, made a last-ditch effort to fight back by charging forward in an attempt to escape the situation. I remained unmoved as I steadied my aim. I pulled the trigger just as it was lunging at me. The sound of the gunshot broke the silence, and it immediately put an end to its charge. There, on the other side of the slope, my comrades also fired. The chase had come to an end, and victory and gunfire filled the air. In spite of the fact that dusk was drawing near, we continued on, making every second count. I observed a herd of wild boars gathered below, completely ignorant to the impending threat from our vantage point on the high ridge where we were positioned. Our next action was determined by our years of experience in hunting. In order to take the shot, we held our breath, steadied our guns, and then fired. The first bullet shattered the silence by bursting through the air and causing it to break. Even though the herd dispersed in a state of panic, we did not allow them to escape. The subsequent onslaught of gunfire was so persistent that it prevented them from retreating. 2 of the over a dozen boars were able to escape the situation. With their eyes searching every shrub and tree, our hunting hound ran across the battlefield like warriors storming in a battle. Their eyes were searching every tree and bush. Their growls were piercing and hostile in nature. A wild pig that was in a state of terror raced across our path. The time has come for this. I took a step forward, aimed, and fired my weapon. A bullet ripped through the thick hide of the animal. Immediately prior to its death, the beast let forth a ferocious roar before collapsing. Before it had even had a chance to touch the ground, our dogs had already rushed in to claim their triumph. At the very moment when we believed that the hunt had come to an end, our dogs went into a frenzy and began barking violently at a dense bush. Inside there was something concealed. Suddenly there was a peculiar sense of urgency in the air. An ordination was not performed here. We clenched our fists around our weapons, ready to use them in any situation. The entire event took place in a single moment. Instinct took control of the situation. The trigger was pulled by me. As the bullet shot, it struck the beast in the exact middle of its body. There were 3 days left in our hunt, which lasted for a week. Through the western hills, across 2 creeks, and spending the night under a large oak tree, we have been following the boars as they have been moving across the landscape. Last night, our trail cam captured a sight of an elderly boar weighing approximately 260 pounds and with tusks that bent like fish hooks. In addition, the wind was blowing in the perfect direction this morning. The hunt had resumed its work. First thing in the morning, we made our way to the location where we had discovered significant boar footprints the day before. As I stood in the blind, I raised my rifle and glanced through the scope. I was surprised to see that it was right in front of me. The boar was immediately put down by the bullet, which impacted it cleanly. Hank crooned a single note that was really sharp. I was completely aware of what it was. More of them were in the vicinity. A tiny boar that is wild. No hesitation on my part. The trigger was gripped more tightly by my finger. While out on the trail, Hank had already determined the direction in which the boar was heading. I made a move to cut them off at the edge of the route, while Hank and Dawson surrounded them from both sides, performing the classic pincer maneuver technique. After that, there was a sound of gunfire. Initially, I failed to hit my target. Because of our strong formation and flawless synchronization, we were able to take complete command of the hunt. Another group of boars was killed, one after the other. It is currently the middle of the morning. With the intention of finding the larger ones, we ventured further into the forest. Dawson suddenly stopped moving in front of us. It was a clear rustling sound that could be heard in the dry leaves. Or rather than wasting time, Dawson raised his weapon and fired a single shot, causing it to fall to the ground. Almost before we had a chance to collect our breath, we heard more rustling that was connected to our run. In the direction of the pathways, a herd of wild boars charged. It was an astonishing and crazy sight to behold. The jungle was filled with the sound of gunshots. As we listened to him rack his bolt, the sound reverberated in our heads. These moments were without a doubt the most dramatic and thrilling ones that occurred throughout the day. We took a brief pause, reorganized ourselves, and made some adjustments to our ambush approach before moving into the woodland in a southeasterly direction. As expected, a second group came into being. I felt my instincts kicking in. After chambering the weapon, I pulled the trigger without showing any mercy. Another boar was killed by the firing that was going on. It was getting close to the conclusion of the day. I was only going to stay around for a little while longer in case there was a straggler who happened to walk by. I was fatigued. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, an additional entire herd rushed in. He laughed, Hank. As far as I can tell, no one informed me that the boar hunting season had begun. As soon as I saw them, I felt a complete and total absence of exhaustion. I raised my gun, took aim, and then within a split second, I dropped it. We were all exhausted, hot, dirty, and covered in dust by the time day 3 came to a close, yet our eyes still shone with excitement. It had been a challenging day, but it had been full of unexpected events, and it had been well worth it. While we were making our way back to camp, the forest was filled with the sounds of laughter, cigarette smoke, and tales of clean shots. Tomorrow, we will go hunting once more because the wild boars have not yet finished their prey. Over the course of the previous 2 weeks, residents of a rural district in Turkey have been making consistent complaints about wild boars ruining their crops and even attacking their cattle during the night. There were numerous standard approaches that were tried, yet the issue continued to exist. When confronted with this critical circumstance, our hunting team collaborated with the people to take action, and as a result, we started looking for these destructive invaders. On this particular day, this would be our very first ambush. When the first dark figures began to emerge, we had just gotten into position and established ourselves. The sound of the gunshot caused the boar to make a hasty retreat, crashing through the underbrush in an attempt to get away. After going through a few more rounds, it finally fell to the ground in the forest, and I couldn't help but rejoice in that moment. As soon as we achieved our first success, we immediately moved into position and made continual adjustments to our scopes. This was done since the herd moved in an unpredictable manner through the rugged terrain. It was a significant struggle to fire the first shots because they were fired from a considerable distance. We were able to bring down a number of targets in the blink of an eye, however, since we were able to maintain perfect concentration and shoot with pinpoint accuracy. We had only traveled a short distance when, all of a sudden, another shadow that was recognizable to us began to materialize, at the very instant when it emerged from the undergrowth. Moreover, it was red, swift, spotless, and accurate. There was another wild boar that shot out of nowhere, not too far away. I did not move from my position. I secured a firm hold on the weapon, and I began firing. Regrettably, my initial attempt was unsuccessful. I was fortunate enough to find that my hunting companion had been waiting farther down the slope. The second boar was seen falling to the ground by another friend who was standing just next to us where we were. As a result of the loud barking of our hunting dogs, we were able to locate another boar that was concealed. Nevertheless, this one would not be easily defeated. It was able to sneak through the tight spaces and the thick vegetation. Our group fired, but the boar continued to maneuver through the thicket despite our efforts. It was simple for the herd to twist it, and as a result, we were left behind, feeling disappointed and sorry. As we made our way toward the pinnacle of the mountain, we continued to make our way over the rough and rocky trails. While we were looking at the terrain in front of us, we noticed a herd of boars charging downhill. Having made up our minds that we would not allow them to escape, we rapidly dispersed ourselves and shut off critical escape routes. As soon as the boars made their way down from the treetops, my friend and I began firing our weapons. Both of them collapsed nearly immediately, despite the frantic sprint that they were making. We had no doubt that there were further wild boars hidden in the vicinity. The group continued their hunt,